This is the Analysis in Chains with Nathan Williams and Neil Kieran.
Welcome to Analysis in Chains. I'm Nathan Williams. Joining me today is Daniel Barr, the co-founder and chairman of Tenzorum. Tenzorum is a seamless onboarding that uses gasless transactions to help people access blockchain. Daniel, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Nathan. Great to be on your show.
So when we're talking about seamless onboarding, what do we mean exactly? Is it's a layer 2 protocol that helps people access blockchain in what way?
Right now, if anyone wants to use blockchain for any meaningful use case, they'd need to hook themselves up with an exchange and then with the hardware wallet, and then they would need to make sure that their friends or their organization that they're interacting with have all the different infrastructure in place. It's like a totally cumbersome process. Now, what we mean by seamless onboarding is that by now we already have existing wealth of technologies, both in the blockchain space as well as in the legacy Web 2.0, so to speak, space to allow users to seamlessly interact with the blockchain without having to directly handle private keys, handle mapping to their usernames versus addresses, transact tokens, handle with calculating how much gas they need to pay. Basically, all of those things are things that we take into consideration, and they are incorporated in Tenzorum protocol so that people can just use the technology without having to go through all the complication.
So if I, for example, wanted to, I don't know, exchange between certain tokens or do some sort of transaction, then I could use Tenzorum and it would figure out which blockchain I wanted to be part of, which gas fees I would use, and it would handle my keys?
Obviously, all this is something that will definitely be possible. We're starting baby steps from where we are today with a very broken experience.
Okay.
We are actually integrating at the back end decentralized exchange so that it would be possible to do what you're just describing. But even much before that, we have a demo app that basically allows you to generate tokens, transact them between users, whilst you don't even see that in the background, there is ETH transaction fees for the gas. There is public keys that are pointed. Basically, you're transacting between two usernames instead of keys. So you're not seeing those addresses. You register your subdomain, your ENS subdomain. And all that is happening without you preparing it in a rigorous way.
So when you say usernames, is this sort of like a DNS in a way for blockchain? I could have my own analysis in chains address and people could send me tokens there?
Yeah, absolutely. So different networks have different implementations for that. Right now we're working on Ethereum, and the Ethereum name service, so ENS, has auction process that takes about 5 days, and then you need to reveal your bid, and then you basically have your ENS domain. It's cool, but the thing is that the average person wants a username right now, and they don't want to go through 5 days auctions just to get things going. So what we did is basically an ENS subdomain factory that allows you with just 2 clicks to get your subdomain username. And right now we're actually implementing it such that there would be 0 clicks. So you're basically filling in your username, scanning QR scan, and that's it. You've got it.
How do you bypass the 5 days?
Yeah, the way to bypass
Magic.
it is, of course, Ethereum magicians. So the way to bypass it, as I mentioned, you basically first acquire that domain, and then you can build a subdomain factory, so that anything that is a subdomain of that domain you acquired can be pretty much immediately registered. Pretty much
So it
immediately,
would
I'm
be like
saying,
a
because
tenzorum.org subdomain, like analysis and chains at Tenzorum or something.
yeah, exactly. So like it would be nathan.tenzorum.eth or daniel.tenzorum.eth. Yeah.
Very nice. Now, how when people talk about blockchain adoption and how complex it is, they say, my grandmother would never be able to use it because there's too many steps involved. It's too complicated. Handling the keys would be a nightmare. She's used to her bank account. Now, with Tenzorum, are we talking about getting it to the level where only a tech expert would use it, or maybe a tech newcomer would use it, or maybe a good high school student would use it, or maybe even my grandmother would use it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because you're definitely right. Right now, the fact that people have to handle their own keys, so like key management is a major point like of failure, right? Because people are uneducated for that. It becomes a single point of failure if you lose your key, and then all of the associated assets are gone. And often, as like before you have the ENS usernames, basically it's not human readable. So like go figure what's the difference between a key that is associated to one asset to a key that is associated to other assets. As well as basically you need ETH to handle your transaction fees in gas. You basically, as a developer, it's difficult to account for the different gas fees depending on the how busy is the network. It's a very restricted system. So for Tenzorum, we're basically building those pieces of the puzzle that at first you get something that is human readable, you can interpret, right? Instead of handling keys and public addresses. And then second, we allow to transact tokens or non-fungible tokens in a gasless fashion, so that if you are, say, your grandma likes to play a game on her iPad, or your high schooler that plays games on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that you would not have to, every time that you interact with those decentralized applications, think about the entire gas system or any other considerations. If those applications are actually using tokens, and more applications are now incorporating tokens into their games and services. So yeah, the idea is to make it such that the general public will be able to participate in the crypto economy.
This has been a point of contention in the crypto universe for a long time, is this issue of key management, because it almost feels like a zero-sum game. Either I control my keys or I have to trust someone else to control my keys for me. And as soon as we get into this question of custody or custodial services, then we're getting back to, why don't we just have a bank account? Now, from what I understand, this is not a custodial service, what you're dealing with. This is a decentralized way of handling private keys?
Yeah, so that's a good question. First of all, yeah, like there are custodial services that are actually handling the keys for you. What we're looking at is basically allowing you to handle keys in a more friendly way. And if you were to set custodial services for yourself with friends, this is like up to you. But yeah, like we really believe that the power should be left with the user, because this is the only way that you actually end up in a decentralized web, and not in a situation where you kind of you have the ability to to interact in the decentralized web, but you're actually in the end trusting an intermediary to handle that for you. So the way that we're implementing it at first is we already have a smart contract multi-sig wallet that allows you to have tiered accounts, so that basically you'd have master accounts for handling, say, transactions of large volume of tokens, and you'd have action accounts, which may even not be able to allow you to transact. They would only be able to allow you to log in or sign a message. And then you'd have recovery accounts. So basically you can appoint addresses, users, that in case a certain amount of time has lapsed, they will be able to appoint a new master account. But before that time has lapsed, they have no access to appoint any action. So that's basically something that could be theoretically used as custodial service, or otherwise, as we see it, it's the Web3 version of the forgot my password button.
Nice. I like it. Forgot my password. Please send me the keys. These all are important aspects for making crypto usable. How much do you think that usability plays into the overall mass adoption of crypto? And do you see mass adoption happening anytime soon?
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now in the crypto community.
If you can prognosticate this, I think we'll be all very happy. You know, like if you can make the future prediction and it comes true, everyone's waiting with bated breath, right?
Yeah. I think it's a fact. It's not up for debate that if it's not usable, it's not really going to be possible to achieve mass adoption, right? Because what we're talking about, even just from the name, mass user adoption, if it's not usable for users, it's just not going to happen. It's going to keep being an intellectual thing for us crypto nerds, but it's not going to be as interesting as it would be when it actually reaches the masses, and hopefully not just any masses, especially the unbanked and people that can really be empowered by having permissionless access to an alternative open financial system. What was the second question? I forgot.
Well, just do you have sort of an idea, timeline? Yeah, like have you seen people respond to this, basically?
Yeah, I think that it's becoming increasingly more gaining more attention finally from good developers. You actually started having more and more of the discussions in the core Ethereum community around user experience, around how it's important that we would start having not only developers, but we also need designers, product managers, educators. Basically, like all of those are equally important, because otherwise you're basically building vaporware. So in terms of timeline, I would share with you one of my personal opinions about not just the technology, but also the market cycle. So something that happened back in 2012, 13 or something with Bitcoin was that the first use case kind of gained popularity and got media exposure with Silk Road. So for those who were around at the time, remember that this was suddenly like blowing out of proportion, and one Bitcoin hit, I think, $1,300, which was like mind blowing at the time. Now sounds very cheap.
It does.
And
if we could only go back.
And the cool thing that happened is not necessarily the price appreciation or anything. The cool thing that happened is that suddenly there was a lot of attraction of talent to come on board and build different solutions. So people started building wallets, people build more and more, say, blockchain explorers, payment channels. stuff that were like really taking things to the next level. However, we still entered a bear market, right? So what it meant was that suddenly you have a lot of talent and attention, or a lot is a relative thing, but like you had talent and attention, but you still did not have real mass user adoption. But with this talent that came in and built infrastructure and tools for the ecosystem to expand, in the next run, suddenly you saw much bigger growth, right? Like suddenly, like you had companies like Bitmain and blockchain.info that became massive, right? Right now, what's happening is pretty much the same. With the ICO frenzy of 2017, you basically had insane attraction, like insane number of projects and talented developers that got into the space, started building small stuff, some of them relevant, some of them less relevant. But point is that you have upskilling of people into the thinking of the decentralized web.
The talent pool increased.
And then the talent pool and the small tools and stuff that can all together compose this new decentralized web, it still did not really take off. So the way I see it, the momentum has been built because of the ICO frenzy, but it still didn't materialize. So you're expected to see a tsunami, which is much bigger than what we've seen in 2017, at the first moment that the market is going to pick up. Now, in terms of timeline, it can happen anywhere between months from now to a year or two, depending on various other factors.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that make it hard to predict, but you brought up a lot of points that often get passed over, as people will often look at purely the financial trends, how hyped are investors. They put in money once, people get burned, they back off, but it'll cool off and then it'll rise up again, and people will study the technical analysis, but we forget sometimes that the entire base has been preparing for this, and the technology base that we have to work from is much more stable now.
Yeah.
So
it's maturing.
Well, that's it. Now, I want to bring back very briefly to you guys are doing a token sale, as I understand, correct?
Yes.
Now, did you decide to go with a utility token or a security token?
Yeah, good question. I know that now security tokens are gaining popularity, and I think it's actually great. There's a lot of potential for disruption of legacy financial systems there. However, for our use case, it's a protocol token. Effectively, you'd need to interact with Tenzorum token in the process of bootstrapping that network. So similar to how Bitcoin or Ethereum have a token that powers the network, that incentivizes miners, we baked into the protocol somewhat similar features that are basically making it a protocol token. Some people would call it utility token, some people would call it work token.
I like that. Protocol token. It's the first time I've heard it, but I think it's very descriptive. It's funny because in the past 6 months, 8 months, I've heard many, many times this idea of, I like blockchain, but I don't like cryptocurrency. And a lot of it came from sort of this crypto bubble bursting. Personally, I think it's coming largely from a narrative that's being pushed by large corporates that are trying to sell Hyperledger-based custom solutions, but that's beside the point. It's true, though, that for protocols and decentralized infrastructures, they can't really work without a protocol or a utility token. And it's not often that you'll hear that in in the business community, at least.
Yeah. So to that, or what I can comment. So, like I've worked previously with banking sector and other such organizations that are extremely scared when it comes to cryptocurrency, but they don't want to lose on the hype to participate in the technology. Now, I think that there are like use cases that are relevant for each. I understand why blockchain as a data structure is very attractive for auditability and for various other use cases around supply chain or trade finance or general financial applications. However, the reason I'm extremely supportive of cryptocurrencies adoption is because if you want to have truly open systems, then you must incorporate some incentive mechanisms that are not going to rely on intermediaries. And when you have a blockchain platform that doesn't have a native token, that doesn't have any incentive structure, essentially the vendors of those services are going to end up catering institutions like SaaS companies. You'd basically gain access to the platform, you'd gain access to participate, whatever, based on some subscription, which it's all right, it's interesting, but it's totally not what peer-to-peer economy is about.
It
right?
isn't.
It's completely dismissing that part.
It's completely going in the direction of centralized corporate technology and corporate power. And I would say that it is a little bit counter to the initial spirit that Bitcoin was born under. So So Daniel, you're going to be doing a token sale. How can people find out more information about that?
Cool. Yeah. So right now it's a little bit early to really share the full information. We're working on things to be made public at a later stage as soon as it's the right timing. However, on our website, so it's www.tenzorum, which is TENZORUM.org. We have also a pre-sale form. So if you are interested to get early access to information about the token sale, you can just sign up there, and we'll make sure to get you updated. As well as we have a Telegram channel, so you can find us on Telegram through the website. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, thank you. It sounds like you've got a wonderful road ahead of you, and I wish you the best of luck. Daniel Bauer is the co-founder and chairman of Tenzorum.org. They are building a second layer protocol for seamless onboarding with gasless transactions to blockchain for mass adoption purposes. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.